Hello and welcome. In this video I'm going to be focusing on talking through the process of what a provision map is and how to complete provision mapping. This video is one of a series made by the Specialist Teaching Service in Southend, and we work in partnership with schools, parents, children and other professionals. Our service is made up of specialist teachers, HILTers, outreach advisors and other specialist staff. My name is Juliet Frewin and I've worked in secondary schools in a variety of roles for over 20 years, and I am part of the Cognition and Learning Specialist Teaching team. Provision mapping is something that we hear quite often but is not always explained, and it's a really important thing that we know as SENCOs. Provision mapping is aimed at ensuring all provision for a student is mapped out in one document. And this document can be used for many things. It allows the school to recognise their spending, which is important, but more critically, it allows them to investigate easily whether the interventions and other strategies they've got are actually meeting that statutory duty in section F of the HC or the outcomes within the ISP. Provision maps are working documents. They're not documents that we'd expect to see finished and printed off and just kept in filing cabinets. They are ongoing pieces of work. When you apply for an EHC, a detailed provision map is highly effective for demonstrating the support that's required above the universal offer and how that child is being specifically supported. There are a number of stages to go through to plan for provision mapping. We need to consider what actual interventions and other support we have within a school first. So doing an interventions audit is really important as a starting point. What we then need to do is to ensure that we know our costings for our members of staff within the school. So you might need to talk to someone like a business manager within the school to get that information. You will need to know the costings for different levels of staff, so an LSA, a HILTer, all the different people that are running your interventions. Once you have that, you need to identify the cost per session of an intervention. So the hourly rate of that member of staff will be the cost. You then divide that by the number of students that are attending that said intervention. That would then be times by the amount of weeks that it takes place for to give the total cost of that intervention. This would be needed to be completed for all separate interventions. You will then be able to see the cost for all of those interventions combined for each student. Admin time should not be included in this. Equally, professionals that are funded by people other than the school should not be included. You may have professionals though that you have as a school funded to work with those specific students in specialist capacity, and that can be included. You should be included in these provision maps of the information of the interventions and what support is in place as part of your termly reviews. You can then check your final figures against your funding that you've received and include this with your annual review. There are some things that cannot be included, and we have some examples listed here. So any meetings about the child should not be included in that provision map. That is something that is on offer for all students within your school. A similar approach is for SLT, our senior leadership team involvement with a student, and a class teacher. Equipment would not be included as this comes from a separate source of funding. Professionals that are not employed by the school, such as our own service, and any wraparound care such as breakfast clubs or after school clubs would not be included. You can use Excel spreadsheets to collate all of this information. So here is a small example for one individual student of different interventions that they've attended, and you can see the breakdown of the sections of how the funding is worked out. Once that has been done, what's important to consider is the impact of that intervention. So you can see here some have been rated as green, that they've met it, and it's written down what the impact of that intervention is. One has been marked as amber, it's partially met, so that might need to be extended, or there might be an alternative intervention that might be more suitable to meet that need that could be put in place. That's why it's important to consider and regularly review the provision that's in place. Sometimes the students' needs are quite complex, and especially within a secondary school, provision might look different throughout the day and each day of the week. Therefore, this version, this example that I've created, has got an hour by hour, or rather a lesson by lesson guide of the support, and we can see how that has been worked out so that there's a clear, detailed provision map of what support that individual student is receiving. You may also want to have a list of all of the students and the interventions. So this has only got a small snapshot at the top of the interventions, but it would be a much longer list across that would have every single intervention available. And for each student that's on those interventions, they are listed so that all the costings can be included in that one document. Some of you may use software such as Provision Map by TES, and that will actually provide all of these different formats for you using the costings available within your MIS system. I hope you found this brief summary useful. You may also find some other information of use at our Padlet, that you can see the QR code that will take you to this quickly and give you more information. Thank you for listening.